The children in the dark. The first mistake was thinking humans were like every other species. Empires had conquered thousands of worlds, broken millions of civilizations. They had taken slaves, bent them into soldiers, workers, or corpses. It was all the same in the ledger of galactic war. The children of conquered races screamed, but their screams always faded. But when the XYR Dominion caged human children, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. The raid on Belthar. The colony on Belthar 7 wasn't a fortress. It was an agricultural outpost, quiet fields under a pale sun, families living far from the front lines of empire wars. That was why the XYR targeted it. Their ships fell from the clouds like steel predators. Cities burned in minutes. The defenders fought bravely, but they were farmers, miners, engineers, not soldiers. When the smoke cleared, the survivors were bound in chains. The adults were processed first. Most were shipped away as slaves, their fates sealed in the holds of transport barges. The children, however, were taken somewhere else. Deep beneath the colony ruins, the XYR built cages. Rows upon rows of steel cells, each barely large enough for a child to sit in. They packed them in like cargo, voices echoing in terror, tiny fists pounding against walls that didn't bend. The XYR did not fear their cries. To them, it was no different than the wails of any other species they had conquered. They didn't understand that this was different. Whispers in the Senate. The first reports of Belthar spread slowly through the Galactic Senate. Most delegates dismissed them. Colonies fell every month. Empires rose and shattered. What difference did one more atrocity make? But then the details emerged. Children. Human children. The whispers began. In a Senate chamber filled with trillions of species, only a few names carried the weight of fear and awe. Humanity was one of them. They were a species that had burned bright and fast, their history soaked in blood and brilliance. They had fought wars the galaxy still remembered in scars carved into planets. Then, mysteriously, they had withdrawn, retreating to the dark edge of space. For centuries, humanity had kept to itself. But everyone remembered the old wars. Everyone remembered what humanity did to those who hurt their own. And when news spread that the XYR Dominion had not only slaughtered a colony, but had caged human children, a murmur of dread spread through the Senate. One senator, a reptilian elder of the XYTH species, broke the silence with a single question. Do they even understand what they've done? The first signs. The XYR Dominion didn't notice it at first. They were too busy celebrating victory, parading their conquest through their core worlds. The Emperor himself declared, "Humanity is broken. Their children are in our hands. Their spirit will die in cages." But in the weeks that followed, strange things began to happen. Convoys carrying slaves simply vanished. Entire patrol fleets lost contact in human border space. Outposts reported shadows moving between stars, too fast for sensors, too silent for alarms. Then the whispers began in the XYR's own territory. Soldiers heard voices in the dark, speaking in human tongues they didn't know yet somehow understood. Release them. Return them. Or suffer. Commanders laughed it off. Psychological warfare, they sneered. Scare tactics. Empty threats. But the laughter didn't last. The prison planet. The children were kept on Ka-Threx 9, a barren world turned into a prison. Towers of steel rose from the dust, walls bristling with cannons. The atmosphere itself was poisoned, a constant reminder that no escape was possible. Inside, the children endured. The youngest cried until their voices broke. The older ones held them, whispering songs their parents had taught them, songs about Earth, about stars, about never giving up. The guards mocked them. "You are nothing now," they hissed through the bars. "Your people are gone. No one will come for you." But the children did not break. They drew pictures in the dirt, of ships blazing through skies, of armored figures walking through fire. They whispered of parents who would return, of uncles and aunts who would come with thunder in their hands. The guards sneered. Fairy tales. Dreams. Humanity is finished. They didn't realize the children weren't talking about fairy tales. They were remembering. The first retaliation. It came without warning. A XYR outpost orbiting Ka-Threx 9 detected an unidentified contact, a single vessel emerging from the void. The outpost commander laughed when he saw it. It was human. But not a fleet, not an armada. Just one ship. Old, battered, scarred from countless battles. A relic. The commander ordered it destroyed. Every gun on the outpost fired. Plasma lances, missile storms, energy beams. The void lit up in white fire. When the light cleared, the human ship was gone. The crew cheered, convinced they had erased it. Until the lights in the outpost flickered. Every screen turned black. Every weapon fell silent. One by one, the crew's comms filled with static, and then with voices. Children's voices. Human voices. You caged us. The outpost went dark. When reinforcements arrived days later, they found the station intact, its defenses unbroken. But every crew member was dead, their eyes wide in terror, their mouths frozen in screams. And on the walls, burned into steel as if by fire, were words in human script. We are coming. Dread across the stars. The galaxy had seen war. It had seen cruelty. But it had never seen this. The XYR Dominion tried to control the story, declaring the reports false, propaganda spread by rivals. But survivors began to emerge. Broken soldiers, drifting in lifeboats, whispering the same words over and over. They're here. The humans are here. The Senate erupted in chaos. Some species demanded immediate sanctions against the XYR. Others begged for negotiations with humanity, to beg forgiveness before the storm arrived. One senator, trembling, shouted across the chamber. You fools! This isn't about diplomacy. You caged their children. Do you understand what that means? Humanity doesn't forgive. Humanity doesn't forget. They will come for every one of us if we do nothing. The chamber fell silent. Everyone remembered the old wars. Everyone remembered the last time humanity's children were threatened. Entire empires had burned. The children's signal. Deep beneath Ka-Threx 9, one of the older children found a panel loose in the wall of her cage. She was 10 years old, with dark eyes that burned like stars. Her name was Amara. Behind the panel, wires hummed. She didn't know how, but her hands moved as if remembering something older than she was. She connected the wires, whispered to the others to stay quiet, and sent a single signal into the void. Not words. Not coordinates. Just a song. A lullaby her mother used to sing, broadcast into the stars. The guards didn't notice. But someone else did. On the edge of Terran space, deep in the graveyard of ships where humanity's fleets had slept in silence for centuries, an ancient machine stirred. Lights flared in the darkness. Engines groaned awake. A fleet that had been silent for generations opened its eyes. The lullaby had been received. And humanity answered. Suspense rising. Back on Ka-Threx 9, the children huddled in their cages, unaware of what they had awakened. Guards marched by, laughing, sneering, convinced of their dominance. But every shadow seemed darker now. Every silence stretched too long. Even the guards began to feel it, an unease they couldn't name. The sky above the prison was clear. No fleets, no armies, no signs of rescue. Yet still, a sense of inevitability pressed on them, as if something vast and merciless was already descending. And in the distance, too faint for sensors to detect, too quiet for alarms to catch, the first Terran warship roared awake. The warship that answered. The galaxy had seen vengeance before. But this was different. The first roar. Ka-Threx 9 skies were quiet when it began. Guards patrolled the prison walls. Searchlights swept the cages. The children huddled in silence, their lullaby having vanished into the stars days ago. The guards mocked them still. No one's coming, they hissed through bars. Your people abandoned you. You'll die here, nameless. Then the ground trembled. At first, the soldiers thought it was seismic instability. The prison was built on unstable ground, after all. But then the tremors grew rhythmic, like a heartbeat, steady, vast, undeniable. Overhead, the stars bent. A single human warship tore free from the void. It was not sleek like the XYR cruisers, not gilded like Senate fleets. It was scarred, blackened, its hull pitted from ancient battles. But it radiated something no other ship in the galaxy carried, wrath made into steel. The guards froze, their weapons trembling in their claws. They had no words for what they saw. The ship hung above the prison like a blade suspended from the heavens. And then it spoke. Not with words. With sound. From its hull, across the poisoned sky, came a sound so loud it shook stone to dust, a human war drum, ancient, primal, beating in rhythm with a children's lullaby. The prisoners lifted their heads. Tears streaked their faces. They knew that sound. Their warship had come. The Dominion responds. The XYR reacted with fury. Within hours, a fleet surrounded Koth-Rex 9, destroyers, carriers, and siege platforms. Their admiral, a proud veteran named Vadres, snarled across open comms. You are a relic. A single Terran ship. You stand against the Dominion? You will be erased. The warship gave no reply. Instead, its weapons lit the night. Not sleek plasma. Not efficient beams. Humanity's weapons were brutal, archaic by galactic standards, yet devastating. Hyper-accelerated rail slugs tore through destroyers in seconds, splitting them open like carcasses. Entire carriers folded under missile storms that howled like thunder across the void. In less than an hour, half the Dominion fleet was gone. And still the war drums pounded. Admiral Vadres shouted commands, screaming for reinforcements, but panic spread. Soldiers whispered rumors. The ship wasn't just a vessel. It was something older. Something alive. One cruiser captain broadcast his terror across all channels before detonating his ship to escape the sound. They're not coming for victory. They're coming for the children. The prison in panic. Inside the cages, the guards were losing control. Some fled into the desert. Others turned their weapons on the children, snarling that if humanity wanted them, they would take them as corpses. But the older children had been waiting. Amara, the girl who sent the signal, stood tall in her cage. Her eyes blazed. They're here, she whispered, steady despite her age. They're coming for us. Don't be afraid. When a guard raised his weapon, aiming for the nearest child, the prison walls shook. A single rail slug from orbit slammed into the perimeter. The towers collapsed like straw. The guard dropped his weapon, staring at the sky in horror as flames consumed him. The children pressed their hands against the bars. Freedom was coming. Whispers across the Senate. Far from Koth-Rex 9, the Senate watched in real time. The XYR demanded aid, screaming that the Terrans were waging an illegal war. But their broadcasts were shaky, filled with static, overshadowed by that war drum echoing even through the transmissions. Delegates shifted nervously in their seats. This is impossible, one muttered. Humanity hasn't fought in centuries. They swore they would not return, another whispered. That their fleets were dismantled, their weapons sealed. A ZITH senator hissed sharply, silencing them all. You fools. You never understood them. Humanity never dismantled anything. They were waiting. Waiting for a reason. He leaned forward, voice dropping to a hiss that cut the chamber cold. And now you have given them the only reason they ever needed. The warship descends. The Terran ship broke through Koth-Rex 9's poisoned skies. Its hull screamed as it entered atmosphere, fire trailing across its scars. The Dominion defenses fired everything they had: artillery, missiles, plasma storms. It didn't matter. The warship plowed through them like a predator through prey, its guns tearing apart the planet's crust itself. The prison guards scattered. Towers crumbled. The ground split. The ship didn't land. It hovered, blotting out the sky, its shadow stretching across the cages. The children stared up, their eyes wide, as the warship's underside split open. Not to deploy troops, not to send shuttles, no. It roared. The war drum turned into a voice. A human voice, booming across the world in a language no alien could misinterpret. You caged our children. The words shook the prison to dust. The rescue. The cages shattered. Not gently, not carefully, violently. The locks melted under beams of light, steel snapping like twigs. Children stumbled free, coughing in the poisoned air, clutching one another in fear and awe. From the warship, drones descended. Old Terran drones, hulking, angular, painted in scars and blood-red markings. They scooped up the children, shielding them with energy fields, carrying them into the belly of the ship. The guards tried to resist. They didn't last seconds. The drones ripped through them without pause, leaving only silence and blood in their wake. One child, Amara, was the last to be lifted. She looked back at the prison, at the ruins, at the smoking corpses of her captors. Her small hand curled into a fist. They thought no one would come, she whispered. The warship swallowed her in light. The message. The XYR Dominion, humiliated, demanded retaliation. They ordered every fleet forward. Armies prepared. The Emperor himself declared humanity would be hunted into true extinction. But then the message came. Not just to the XYR. To every world. Every empire. Every species. A single broadcast, carried on the war drums, echoing across stars. The face of a human commander filled the screens. His armor was battered, his eyes dark with sleepless fury. His voice was quiet, calm, the way a predator is calm before it kills. You touched our children. You will understand the cost. No threats. No diplomacy. Just a statement. Behind him, the recovered children stood. Their small hands clutched the armor of soldiers, their faces set in grim defiance. The feed ended with words seared into the galaxy's memory. This war is not for conquest. It is not for territory. It is for them. And we will not stop. The terrifying ending. The Senate chamber dissolved into chaos. Delegates screamed for peace, for surrender, for negotiations. But it was already too late. Because as the message ended, new signals began flooding every comm system across the galaxy. Not one warship. Not one fleet. Thousands. Human warships, long dormant, rising from the graveyards where they had slept for centuries. Entire armadas awakening in silence, their engines igniting like suns. And all of them heading for Dominion space. The XYR Emperor stared at the reports in horror. They can't have so many ships, he whispered. They can't. But they did. Every warship carried the same symbol scorched into its hull, the outline of a child's handprint, painted in red. And as the galaxy watched, helpless, the first of those fleets tore through XYR border worlds like wildfire. The last transmission from one burning colony was simple, broadcast in a human voice that sent chills through every living being who heard it. You caged human children. Now we cage you.